Hello. So I have decided to take all of my music off Spotify. In fact, I've not just decided it, I've done it now. It's all gone. It's no longer on Spotify. And in fact, I have also removed it from all other streaming platforms as well. So this video today is going to be a little bit of a strange video because I don't really think it's going to be anything to do with modular synth or creativity or, my usual things that I talk about, but it's going to be to do with Spotify and releasing music and just sort of generally how we connect and listen to music. Hey there, if you are enjoying these videos and you are enjoying the weird and wonderful world of modular synthesis, then please do consider hitting the subscribe button. It just lets the algorithm know that I'm not sat here muttering to myself in this room full of cables for no reason. And of course, if you would like to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon, the link is in the description. There's not an awful lot on there at the moment, but it is growing and it is filling up. You can kind of think of it as like an exclusive minimalist modular experience. But genuinely, your support is very much appreciated. It keeps the patch cables untangled and the ideas flowing. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. It really does mean a lot. But let's get back to the video, shall we? Cheerio. Now it's not a decision that I have just suddenly come to. It's something that I've been thinking about for some time. And I have actually sort of slowly been sort of removing some of my stuff from Spotify anyway, some of the older stuff. But I finally decided, with certain things that have been going on and certain things that have come about in the news recently, I finally decided that I think the time is right to remove the rest of my music from Spotify as well. Now I do try to sort of avoid talking about politics on this channel because I would much rather focus on music and that sort of thing. And I have a feeling that there are parts of this video that may get a little bit political, but I will try and keep that to a minimum. No doubt there will be people that disagree with what I'm saying or think that what I'm doing is stupid, and I will probably receive some negative comments. I'm kind of expecting that for this video, but that's okay, that's fine. I just felt I wanted to sort of explain my reasoning behind it, and just go into some of my thoughts around what is happening in, I guess, the music industry at large and Spotify and everything else. So as I say, this is not something that I sort of suddenly decided I'm just gonna get rid of everything off Spotify. It is something that I've been thinking about for some time, and there is a few things that have sort of led me to this decision. And I know I've started to notice a lot of other artists have been removing their music as well, and that's kind of got me thinking a little bit about how we sort of engage with some of these systems and that sort of thing. And in fact, I was watching an interesting video the other day about I can't remember what the video was called, but it was about Radiohead and about how Radiohead had inadvertently paved the way for Spotify and all these other streaming platforms, and the release of their album In Rainbows, which was I think sometime in the early 2000s maybe. That album that they released, In Rainbows, I can't remember. I just can't remember when that was released. Anyway, I did buy that album. I bought like the limited edition thing on vinyl and whatnot. But they released that was the first album that they released. It must have been like 2003, 2004, something like that. And you could pay what you wanted, or even nothing at all. And it was the point when they had fulfilled their contract with their record company, and so they were completely free to do what they wanted. They recorded an album, they put it out on their website. You could download it for free, or you could just pay what you want. And then a lot of other artists started to sort of follow suit take note of what they'd done and follow suit, and we started seeing other artists doing similar, just letting their album be available for free download. And of course, this was sort of a reaction to what was going on with some of the a lot of the piracy, I guess, that was going on in terms of like people ripping and downloading albums and all the Napster stuff, and all of that in turn was also a reaction to the standard business model of the record of the music industry that had been up to that time, which was based on physical media, records, CDs, etc. But the record companies really holding the power there, and keeping the majority of profits for themselves, and not always having fair deals with artists. So of course, Radiohead did their thing and sort of broke the system, and then not long after that, I think we had Spotify come about, and it was like, wow, this is new. You can pay £10 a month and legitimately listen to whatever you want, and lots of artists started getting on board and putting their music on Spotify, and I had downloaded music illegally, pirating. I can't remember what. LimeWire was one of the things. Kazaa, I think. There were lots of different platforms that you could use to download MP3s, but I had done that as most people, I'm pretty sure, had. But when there came this thing, Spotify, I was like, you can pay £10 a month and you can listen to this music for free, all of this music. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. It's legal, and I thought, well, this is great. You're supporting the artist because you're paying some money, and that money goes back to them, and at the same time, I'm getting access to all this music. So it seemed like an amazing system. Of course, as time has gone on, there are flaws in that system, and one of those flaws is that artists don't earn very much money from Spotify, and it seems that's slowly that is getting less and less. So it's not a great system, and it's not a system that I want to engage with much more. There are a few other reasons as well. So obviously, we're all aware of how streaming has affected the music industry and how it has affected artists' ability to earn a living from the music that they make. But then just recently there are so many other issues that seem to be associated with streaming, and Spotify in particular. So we've recently seen all of this AI generated music that is flooding Spotify now, and of course because of the way it works and the algorithm processes and so on that will promote things that people are listening to, it's possible to generate music which is pushing these AI generated bands to the top of the charts, which of course is making a lot of money. But where is that money going to? Who is making that money? Not musicians, not real musicians, not hard-working musicians. And then of course we've got this other sort of very, sinister news about the association with Spotify and military AI technology. Is it Spotify or is it just Daniel Ek? Daniel Ek, the CEO, founder of Spotify, and his investments in military AI technology. Now, people are free to invest their money in whatever they want, but I really don't feel that, music is about bringing people together and spreading connection around the world. It's certainly not about blowing people up, and it just doesn't seem right that somebody who is running a company that is about connecting people on one hand should then be investing in technology that is for blowing people up on the other hand. And it's I don't know, it's the world that we live in, and that association doesn't seem right to me, and so that is another reason why I don't really want my music on Spotify. And as I say, I've said that I'm actually, it's not just Spotify. I'm removing my music from all of the platforms that are out there, and that's because I've decided not just to pull the music off Spotify, but I'm actually going to stop paying the fee to DistroKid that I have used for the last few years or whatever that I've had my music out there, and by cancelling or closing my DistroKid account, that means that my music will be gone from all those streaming platforms. Now, I did used to earn a small amount of money from streaming, a very small amount of money, and that amount of money would offset the amount of money that I would pay for DistroKid, just about. But in recent years, we've seen Spotify change their policies. So now you have to have a certain number of streams per month in order to get paid. Even though those streams are still generating money, you will no longer receive that money if you're not getting so many a month. And obviously that's there to incentivize you to get more streams and ultimately to make Spotify more money. But I operate in a corner of the music world which is so niche, I guess, and I'm such a tiny figure in that world that it's very difficult to drive people to Spotify to get that number of streams. And do I really want to do that anyway? I don't think I do. So now I am no longer receiving the money that the small amount of money that I used to receive that actually paid the DistroKid fee. I'm no longer receiving that. So that means that I am now paying to have my music out in the world for people to listen to, if they do actually go onto Spotify and listen to it, which is not very many. And that's partly my own fault, because I don't really promote Spotify or my Spotify profile that well. But it doesn't really seem right that I am putting all this time and effort and energy into creating music to then have to pay for other people to listen to it. And you could argue that, well, you're in a fairly privileged position to be able to make weird, crazy music anyway, and it's not of that much value to people, so why would they want to listen to it? Well, do you know what? Some people do actually listen to it, and they do like the music that I make, and that's great. I don't expect that it's gonna be liked by everyone, but I do feel quite strongly about if you have done something and you've provided some kind of value for people or something that people enjoy, then you deserve to have some kind of compensation for that. And I think that comes from sort of working for a long time. I've had lots of different jobs over the years, but I've worked as a photographer, I've worked as a web designer, as a teacher, and so many times have I been contacted by people who will ask me to do certain things. Do this website, do this photo shoot, blah, blah, blah. We don't have any money to pay you right now, but it'll be great exposure for you. It'll be great for your profile. It'll be great, blah, 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 blah. Well, no, it won't actually, because I had clients that would pay me the fee that I deserved to do the work that I was doing for them. So I don't need to enhance my portfolio. I don't need any greater exposure. So I do have this kind of strong belief that if you're doing some kind of work, you should be paid for it. And that just does not happen on Spotify, at least, in the area of music that I operate in. So it kind of feels really that, it's just not worth bothering with Spotify anymore. And in a similar token, all of those other streaming platforms as well. I think there are much better ways of reaching an audience. There are much better ways of engaging with people, and one of those is YouTube. here we are now. You're watching a video. I put out a video last week. It was a track that I'd done, and I didn't actually expect that many people would watch it, but last time I checked, there was over 800 views on that video. 800 views on that. 800 people that have listened to that track. If I'd put that out on Spotify, it would be 0 or 1 or 2 maybe, I don't know. So it's just not worth bothering with, as far as I can see at the moment. And I don't expect that will change in the future either, because I think once a person or an artist or a creator establishes themselves on a platform such as YouTube or Bandcamp or Patreon, which are all great platforms, I think, and they're definitely still worth bothering. But once you're established on one of those platforms, you don't need Spotify. You don't need all those streaming services. So I think, it's just not worth the bother. Let's have a tea break, because my voice is getting a little bit croaky. And so I should say as well, as I just mentioned, I am. It's not just Spotify; it's all the streaming platforms, and that's because I'm no longer using DistroKid anymore. Now that will probably mean as well that I used to have a link in the description which gave a discount for people to sign up with DistroKid, and I'm going to remove that as well, because I can't genuinely promote something to people, even discounted, that I'm not using myself. Now, I'm probably not going to go back through every single video and remove that link from the descriptions of all my old videos, but definitely moving forward, I am going to take that out, because it doesn't seem right to have that in there still. So yeah, so as we say, it just kind of feels a bit pointless having that Spotify profile there. And does it carry any weight? Does it make you any more of a professional musician because you have a Spotify page with your music on it? I don't think it does, because in this day and age, anybody can record any sound and upload it via a distribution company and have it on Spotify. It doesn't really mark you out any more professional than anyone else. Yes, there are, the top musicians in the world have their music on Spotify, and you are sharing a platform with them, but that doesn't mean to say that you are in the same league as them. So really, having a Spotify profile does not actually add any kind of legitimacy or anything like that to your music. And in fact, the only thing I think that creates legitimacy is whether people engage with your music or not. And I think you can get better engagement through other platforms. So that's I guess one of the reasons why it's got to go. I guess as well, I've kind of gone through a sort of decluttering phase, and I've deleted a lot of old websites that I used to maintain and got rid of some old gear and sort of tried to clear a few things out. And I guess this is, getting rid of Spotify is also part of that process of, it doesn't really serve me that well, so it might as well go. And I can hear people, I can hear the criticism that there's like, what is the point of making this video? What is the point of even talking about this? Because if nobody listens to my music on Spotify anyway, what difference is it going to make to Spotify whether I take my music off or not? Well, it's not going to make any difference at all, is it really? In the grand scheme of things, it's not going to make any difference at all. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me, me taking my music or me having my music on Spotify is going to have no effect on Spotify at all, because I am such a tiny entity in the grand scheme of things. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what you think is right, and small actions add up. And that is one of the things that I often talk about on this channel in terms of like creativity and doing the work and doing the practice is, if you just keep chipping away little actions, small tasks and so on, then you'll get the thing done. And so, yeah, I am just one tiny person that is having an effect or not having an effect as it may be, but maybe that will influence somebody else, and maybe that will influence somebody else, and maybe that will influence somebody else, and slowly over time maybe a change can be enacted. And I think that's kind of the point of this, if there is any point at all. So I am also considering, for the first time, I am also considering, I forgot to restart my timer. I am also considering for the first time in a long time. So I don't know when Spotify first came out. It must have been like mid 2000s perhaps. And I signed up for Spotify pretty much straight away as soon as it started. And very quickly I started paying £10 a month to subscribe and have it ad free. And I've paid for it ever since, and it has become my main way of consuming music. And I have listened to music via Spotify I guess, since it's been going. But for the first time, I am considering cancelling my Spotify subscription and no longer paying for that experience. Now, obviously, you can still use Spotify, you just have to put up with all the ads. But I actually think that, prior to Spotify, I would engage physically with music through CDs. I have a whole bunch of CDs there. There's a lot of CDs downstairs. If I go over here, I can just pull out a few CDs. I don't know what I've got here. Tom York, Kelly Joe Phelps, Bjork, Prodigy, some funky thing, Graham Coxon, all sorts of CDs. All of these CDs I know so well, and I've listened to them so much over the years. But I can't say that the same is true of the music that I discover through Spotify. It's a very superficial way of listening to music, and I'm sure many of you will already know that and have that experience. But when I used to go out and buy CDs, and mainly for me it was CDs, because I am of the generation where CDs were the main form of music. I was probably too young to be into vinyl when vinyl was original. When I was a small child, it was cassette tapes and then CDs, and then I kind of didn't really get into the vinyl resurgence, but I am sort of a little bit into that now, but not as much because I was never into vinyl in the first place. And yeah, so I've gone off on a tangent, haven't I? So I would buy CDs, I would listen to them, I would read the inlay, and know those artists and know the albums inside out. I don't have the same experience with Spotify. A lot of the time I don't even know what the album's called, let alone what any of the tracks on that album are. And I've got thousands of artists saved in playlists and that I follow and whatnot on Spotify. And most of them I've probably only listened to a handful of times before I go on to something else and something else and something else. So it's not really a deep engagement. And I'm thinking to myself, rather than just have this sort of little kind of dipping your toe into all this music and not really listening to it, I think I want to go back to a time where I would engage more deeply with music and listen to it properly. So I've still got a CD player downstairs. Most of the time nowadays, I don't listen to music around the rest of the house because it's a little bit too difficult, and my daughter doesn't like most of the music that I listen to anyway. So I listen to most of my music in the car, or if I'm in this room. My car has a CD player. If I want to listen to music in the car, that's it. It's got to be on CD. So I've got a handful of CDs in the car. Anything that I've got that I've downloaded, then I will often burn it onto a CD and I'll listen to it in the car. So I'm going to get my CD player back out. It was a really lovely setup. I'm going to get that up and running again, maybe my record player as well, and I'm going to start trying to listen to music on CD again, and you know, try and actually buy music from artists. You know, whenever I did buy music, I would always try and buy it from the artist's own website. I don't know whether that actually makes a difference or not, but you know, actually support artists and buy their music rather than streaming it on Spotify. So yeah, I think I am going to cancel my Spotify subscription as well. You know, and hopefully this will all just make space for something better, and you know, yeah, a better way of engaging with music. And you know, I think in terms of my own music, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on Bandcamp, on YouTube, on Patreon. So I think Bandcamp is still worthwhile. You know, although obviously it's a streaming service, but I think its model is much better than Spotify. And there are a lot of artists that I follow and enjoy listening to their music, and they're just on Bandcamp. So, you know, I'm going to keep my music on Bandcamp as well. Obviously, you know, I'll still be doing this YouTube. I'm also going to keep my Patreon going. So if you have not had a look at Patreon, then please consider going over and having a look there and supporting me on Patreon. It is something that I'm kind of very slowly building up at the moment, but you know, I just have one tier that you can sign up to, and I think that's something like £2.50 or $3.50 a month. You know, so it's probably the equivalent of a cup of coffee a month. So if you are somebody that enjoys the content that I make here, or you enjoy the music that I make, and you would like to support that further, then I would urge you to go over to Patreon and sign up as a patron there. A lot of the content is the same content that I have on YouTube, but obviously you can watch it without the ads. And I've got a huge backlog of videos, so I'm still trying to upload. It's not all up there yet. I'm slowly trying to get that up there, and then hopefully I'll start putting some stuff on Patreon as well, sort of Patreon exclusive material. But you know, these platforms, YouTube, Bandcamp, Patreon, they seem the best way to engage with people without the sort of middleman. Although you could argue that they themselves are a middleman, but you know, a much more direct way of engaging. So those are the platforms that I'm gonna stick with in the future. So I don't know, what do you think about this? As I say, it's a bit of a different kind of video for today, and hopefully it's not too ranty and you know, that sort of thing. But I think, yeah, the time has come. Spotify, I have enjoyed using Spotify for many years. You know, I have had my music on there for quite a few years. In fact, I had an email just the other day that marks, I don't know whether it was yesterday, marks the 5th anniversary of the release of my first album. Wow, 5 years to the day that I released my first album on Spotify and everywhere else. But unfortunately, or fortunately, it is all going from there. So thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, then hit like, subscribe, all that jazz. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Cheerio.